Hello and welcome to another edition of the Stench of Truth. Here we are again with war in the Middle East, Israel heavy pounding of Gaza. There are of course many casualties here, both supposed terrorists and as well as women and children. And this of course is a horrible tragedy, and I'm against war anywhere. And I think that what we see here is a reflection of Netanyahu having very little room to maneuver and being taking one of the tacks that the neocons and other global corporate parasites take, and that is go to war in order to try and cover up your own failed policies at home. And of course their economy is suffering just like everybody else's economy around the world. And in order to turn the people's attention away, let's start throwing some bombs around and killing people. So now let me make a couple things clear. First of all, if there is terrorist activity going on, and I'm sure there is, and it is not being provoked by some group behind the scenes, then this needs to be soundly condemned. And of course, I completely support the right of Israel to defend itself. Now, there is a difference between defending yourself and just wholesale blowing up and murder. Now, they claim that their stuff is precision targeted and all this kind of stuff, and then when there are civilian casualties, they claim that it's because the quote-unquote terrorists are hiding in hospitals and schools and everything else, so that they can't be taken out. Now, if their technology is the same as ours, which it's probably the exact same thing that we have because we give them virtually all of their arms or the money to purchase them, then obviously they're not quite as precision targeted as everyone would like you to believe, because our drones routinely kill innocent civilians that have been just relabeled as enemy combatants because they happen to be where they're at the time that the supposed terrorist is blown up. So I'm not an apologist for either of these groups. If you have terrorists in Gaza who are shooting rockets, even if they are very small, ineffective, and largely not very destructive, that does not condone their activity and needs to be condemned. And of course, as I said, Israel has a right to defend itself. But as I said also, there is a fine line between defending oneself. Well, actually, there's no fine line, really. It's actually a very broad line that you shouldn't cross, and that is there is a big line there between defending yourself and just wholesale murder. And of course, we've seen the same kind of thing happen in this country too, where there's a ramping up of hostilities whenever there are problems here at home. And of course, this turns people's heads away to look at the horrible death and destruction, while there are other things that are happening that deserve attention as well. So again, I condemn the actions of Israel because they have engaged in this type of behavior over and over and over again. And I condemn all of the people in Gaza who support and promote the rocketing of targets in Israel. But you have to remember, there is a much more complex situation going on there. Gaza is extremely overpopulated. They're basically walled into a walled enclosure. That's basically where they live. And these people are basically in an open-air prison. And it's because of the lack of progress in trying to resolve the decades-long problem that is in that area that this has developed into a situation that it has. So the lack of any kind of wherewithal on the part of the Israelis and some within the Palestinian, well, I should say some Israelis and some within the Palestinian community, to actually work towards some kind of peaceful resolution is obviously the root of that problem. So I condemn the death on both sides, and I condemn the loss of life, and I condemn the attacks, and I condemn the whole thing, because war is never an answer, death is never an answer, and I am absolutely opposed to every aspect of it. Now on the home front, of course, we have the death of Hostess, and contrary to popular belief that is being presented by the right-wing radical neo-Confederate corporate stooges, it's not the union that was at fault here, because if you look into the past, they've gone through this restructuring before, and the unions have given back and given back and given back, and they finally decided we're not giving back anymore, especially when the corporate bigwigs took an 80% raise, and then wanted the unions to cut their wages and contribute more to their pension funds and all this kind of stuff. And of course, that's not even the kicker. A hedge fund slash venture capital firm, much in the tradition of Bain Capital, the predatory Vulture capitalists, swooped down there to try and gut that company, basically running it into the ground. And what you have today is the end result of predatory vulture capitalism. That is, a company going under because they do not care about the brand, they do not care about the business. All they care about is raking as much money out of it as is humanly possible, and then leaving it to die or carving it up at some point later. And it doesn't matter if there are tens of thousands of people who are out of work as a result of this, because that's not their concern. Predatory vulture capitalism, and capitalism to a certain extent just without the predatory vulture part, of course, is all about making as much money as they can for the shareholders in the company that they represent. And this is expressed most elegantly by the vulture predatory venture capitalist firms such as Bain and many others that go out of their way to try and find these vulnerable companies, to break them apart, to squeeze out as much money as they can from them. And, you know, if thousands of people are thrown out into the streets, well, so be it. They got their money for their shareholders. They've fulfilled their actual purpose. That's their purpose. Their purpose is to make money. And when your purpose is to make money without regard to any other circumstances, then this is the end result. People's lives are ruined. A national brand, something that's been with us, you know, a part of American culture, Hostess, the Twinkie, the Ding Dong, the what do they call those little roll things? You know, this is a tragedy, and it's just another symptom of the sickness that has completely inveigled its way into our economic system in this country, and now is the rule rather than the exception. And it is a terrible tragedy, and it is a terrible tragedy what is going on in the Middle East. And I can only say I condemn both of these things because they are needless, and they do not take into account the extraneous factors. When you look at Israel and Gaza, there is loss of life of innocent people who have absolutely nothing to do with any kind of conflict that are going on over there. And with Hostess, you have predatory capitalists who all they care about is making a profit. And if that means putting 18,000 people out of work and closing plants all over the country, then that's what they do. It's sad, but that's the way it is. Thank you. Good night.